Okay. So this is Hard Things episode 6, I believe. So we're recording this a little bit in advance. We're live at Max Effort Muscle headquarters in Granville, Ohio. And some of the boys are here in the room. We got the Max Effort squad. So if you hear any errant noises, which I welcome, it's going to be them. But most importantly, I'm here with like one of my oldest friends, Danny Walter. What's up, Danny?
What's up, dude? Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
It's funny doing a formal conversation because everything we do is informal.
Well, we don't have to be too formal, but I did at least want to be formal for the intro, just to like set the tone at the beginning. So now this is the 6th episode of like the initial kind of first season of 7, and each episode kind of is counting down from 7. So this one, second to last, thinking about the number 2 when I was first mapping out these episodes and what I wanted to talk about, we had actually just went and saw Dune 2. So the Dune movie, the hero's journey, is obviously really attractive narrative. I think that's the reason the movie is so popular. I mean, that or the worm popcorn bucket.
Yeah, obvious reasons.
I honestly tried so hard to get my hands on one, and it's not possible.
Yeah, you're going to hit eBay, I think.
Pretty disappointed because I thought we were going to pass the bucket during the movie. And to be honest, like watch Zendaya on screen and just, have a great time.
Yeah.
But I still had a great time watching the movie. And it's funny, too, because this is a couple days after Easter. And so kind of one of the original hero's journey stories is Jesus and the crucifixion and the, rebirth, like the Easter story. So, it just feels right to do this. It's a little bit out of order. I haven't recorded. I've recorded 3 podcasts, so kind of
solo, right?
3 solo podcasts, and 2 more I have to do before this one gets released. But I am moving. I've been staying in Ohio, and I'm moving back to Texas. So it's important to me to get this in before I go. Again, welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. And we don't have to. I'm not gonna just keep thanking you the whole episode. So just know that's how we're starting off.
Yeah, dude.
Getting into it. So Dune 2, what did you think of the movie? What was your favorite parts of the movie, main takeaways, I guess?
I think from the first to the second one, obviously you have the book versus the movie, and everyone usually says the book is better than the movie and all that, which there's so much groundwork and framework that they had to lay in the first book or the first movie. So it's especially if you haven't read the book before, you're like, oh my gosh, are they ever going to have some action in this thing? And so, it came out, everyone's talking about how epic it was. Cole was talking about, the epic battle scene that towards the end of the movie and stuff like that. So I was looking forward to that for sure. But I think, thinking between the book and the movie, and then just Paul, you were talking about his hero's journey, or whatever you want to call it. Cause you see it with Joseph Campbell stuff, where he talks about the hero's journey and mythology and stuff like that. So that's what I think of instantly. And then how does that relate to us? So that's what I was thinking the whole time with Paul. Cause he's always, you see it front and center the entire movie. He's just accepted into the Fremen community or whatever. He wants to learn the ways. And then he's starting to realize, through these visions, these dreams, and all this hard stuff that he's going to have to inevitably assume this position. And it's a weird, or it's I think the thing that sticks out to me is that it's not easy to make those decisions, and we're all faced with those decisions at some point in our life. So, and everyone has their own version of that. And I could point to 3 or 4 pivotal moments in my life that were huge turning points or like super impactful. And I know you have yours too. So I think Paul's ascension to having to make that, that choice, because, clearly the relationship was, I'm calling her Zendaya. God, what's her name in the movie again?
Chani.
Chani.
She has a couple names, but yeah,
I almost
Chani,
said
yeah.
Cho from Harry Potter, but yeah. But Chani in the movie. So like, their relationship is growing. He's being accepted by this community, and then he has to like basically be the guy, and like start this holy war, So I think it's just hard for someone to be in that position. So that's kind of like what sticks out to me, and like in my own life, I think the first like big decision for me that really sticks out is like when I stopped playing baseball, because it was I played through my freshman year at Capitol, and then I'm just like, I'm not happy with the way I feel, the way I look. Like, baseball's cool. I love baseball. I've always played baseball. I like the guys on the team and everything, but I'm like, I feel like I'm going to be going through the motions for 4 years if I do this. And it's just going to be forced, over and over again. So that was decision number one that really set the tone for the rest of my life, for sure. That was like the lead domino.
For sure.
Because,
I wanted to back it up even a little further, because where we met was on the baseball field, but as rivals. So you were playing for like our hometown travel team,
Yeah.
Pickerington. I was playing for more like a Columbus global team.
Cobra.
And go Cobras. Shout out to them. Not as great of a time, but then eventually we did end up playing on the same travel team, same high school team, playing football together. And so that transition of going from like rivals to friends is definitely a cool one, and it's not something that happened for me often. I feel like I always had trouble. I didn't have trouble making friends. I had trouble like staying friends, because I was always trying to strive for this journey like Paul. Like, I felt like I was meant for something, and I did have this level of self-respect for myself and wanting to have a community in that, maybe looking for something a little deeper than like a surface level friendship. So like, I'm glad that you're the first guest on the podcast, because you are one of my oldest friends, and I think you just inspired me that like the way that I felt about myself was how you felt about yourself. So I think that's when people become friends, is when they're aligned, they have the same values. And I know like, Dune is kind of also, like I said, a little bit the hero's journey, but also about like keeping faith and almost kind of like religious tones to it. So I know you grew up religious as well, and kind of keeping the faith and having like morals was also important to you. And I think we naturally kind of felt that from each other. So no matter where life took us and all the different things that happened, I definitely wanted to say that I value that. And like, I had a lot of friends kind of come and go, but at the end of the day, having the same mission and values and being able to share that in a community is like what Dune's about, and really I think what life's about. So this podcast and my coaching and my books are really to encourage people to like lean into that. Like, I think everyone feels that inside themselves, like mission, values, morals. It's just a matter of, do you practice that on a daily basis? Are you consuming this kind of hyper-sexualized content that we have in America? Are you giving in to peer pressure to like do things that like aren't good for you? Like, at this point, I'm pretty sure me and you, we don't really like drink all that much. You have a wife and kids, so you even have to be more disciplined than me. But I think that's what's been great about it. So I think when we grew up too, we had fun playing baseball, and then I'm glad that you realized that you weren't having fun anymore, and you just decided to make a different choice.
Mm-hmm.
But also in that time, one thing that was inspiring to me was, I know in like high school football, you played offensive line, and then I remember one time I came home from like school or wherever I had been, and you were just like jacked.
Like when you came back from Harvard, you mean?
Yeah. And like, you were jacked, and you had gotten into CrossFit, And it just felt like there was a shift in you. You were just like, hey, I'm going to take care of myself the way I know I need to. So I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think was the biggest, like, thing that drove you to make that decision, like the catalyst that led you to basically, like, honor your body and get jacked? Like, that's, everyone wants to get jacked, but, like, I think the mental aspect of it is more important than the tactics of, like, eating and working out.
Yeah, I think the first thing, like, I can vividly remember, like, my sophomore year in the dorm on the basement floor. We had one of those long mirrors on the back of the door, and, like, I'd see that mirror every time I would, get up from my bed or my desk or whatever in my room or whatever. And so I'd always have to see myself, and I'm like, yeah, this is not working, And so that was, like, right around the time of, like, when I was deciding to not play baseball anymore. And then that's where, like, triathlons had always been in the back of my mind. That had always been on my radar. I'd seen one of my good childhood friends, like, become, like, legit. And he used to be a little bit overweight too, which is kind of funny too.
Shout out Joe Musso.
No, this is
not
Ross
Joe.
Hartley is his name.
Ross, yeah.
Yeah, so he actually lives in Granville now. So as far as I know. But he would actually, like, win, like, sprint triathlons. So, like, he was the first person I started talking to because obviously, you have swim, bike, run. Swimming being the most difficult to pick up if you have zero background, which, I mean, I took swimming lessons, but that was the extent of it. So my goal was that I wanted to start doing triathlons, and I wanted to lose as much weight as I possibly could. So, and that, like, wasn't really even taking into account what I was actually eating or whatever. Like, and I wasn't even, like, lifting weights at all, right? So I hadn't done any serious. We did some stuff in high school, obviously, but, like, it was kind of haphazard,
Bench press and a little running and
and run the rack curls. Yeah. So, so here we are. I invest in a bike. I get a bike. I'm doing the swimming. I was at, like, 215 at my heaviest coming out of baseball. We're running, like, foul pole to foul pole. We're doing, you can only do so many pitcher, drills coming off the mound, covering first, fielding ground balls. And I'm like, So I wasn't, like, super active. We had our workouts and stuff like that. But then once I started, I started with the run. I started swimming with the local masters team at St. Charles. 60-year-old Brenda's swimming around me like a fish. I feel like an idiot, So I wasn't at that point. I just didn't care about being that person, like, the novice in the pool. I didn't care. I was willing to do whatever it took. So, and that was different from anything I experienced up to that point in my life. So I knew I was on to something. So, fast forward, I did 5 sprint triathlons, and then I did 1 Olympic, which is basically double a sprint. So I actually forget the distances, to be honest. I think it was maybe like a quarter mile. Don't quote me on this. A quarter mile swim, and then it was a 13.1 bike, and then a 5K run was a sprint, and then the Olympic was double that. So I was really getting into that. I went from 215 to 168. To me, it was almost unrecognizable, like 168. I was like, I want to say, like, skinny fat to some extent, And then after that, that's when I wanted to, like, I looked at myself. I'm like, all right, I don't think I'm going to be doing triathlons long term. I enjoy biking or whatever. I don't enjoy running. And then I made the shift, and that's where kind of old school kind of comes into the picture somewhat. Did my first, like, real, like, Corey G volume arm gauntlet of hugeness workout, which was, epic. And then I
eventually gave you your small arms.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that, like, originated from me following him on Twitter. I didn't know he was in Ohio. Then I remember, it was with you, actually. Yeah. We just started showing up to old school, right? Because your cousin or something worked out there, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, like one of your relatives worked out there, and he had to let us in or something like that. And then, like, I remember G wasn't there the first few times. But anyway, so I basically shifted gears training wise. And then that's where, started doing some more, volume. And now I'm like, oh man, this is actually, like, changing my body. I can feel it. I can see it. I like what I see. I like the way I feel. And then CrossFit, high intensity stuff comes into the picture with, like, the original Rug Fitness in Gahanna, which then became CrossFit Grandview down in Grandview. And then that's probably what you were talking about when you came back. Because that's when I remember there's, you know, that was the first time I saw abs, you know, and shout out G. Yeah. We're just talking about my abs right now.
Shout out to you. We're talking like the first time we ever went to old school, the old school.
Yeah.
And like,
actually, fun story real quick. Yeah. So some of the old belts on the wall, there was a straggler. I know you remember this. So I had one of the powerlifting belts on, and I was there with Joe, I think, and I couldn't get this belt off, and I'm like, dude, and I'm like Joe, I can't get this off, dude. Can you
too skinny at that
so
point.
he was he's trying to yank on it, and I had to like basically tail tuck. Oh, it's horrible. And then like tail tucked between my legs, I literally had to go. I'm like, dude, how do you get this off? Like, and you showed me like.
Treadway bombed out of the. What did you miss? 300.
I dropped 225 on myself. Dude,
So we all have them, yeah.
Yeah, happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Mortifying.
My daughter went to get on the Bluetooth, and the TV is named. You already know what it's named, don't you? Popped up.
No.
The TV out there's named Cornhub.
Oh. Yep. I saw that last time I was here.
She just said, "Dad, it was Cornhub."
It's like it's what they watch in Iowa or Nebraska, whatever.
It's fucking terrible.
Oh man.
Best intermission of all time, yeah.
Sweet girl.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Old school. So I mean, I'll tell you, like, old school was like really integral for me because at a certain point I had to take a year off school, and I came home and was working out with you, and where you were at in your fitness journey. You know, I like admired that and wanted it for myself, and I just like couldn't figure out what was happening to like what was keeping me back from those like similar gains. And I have complete clarity on what was happening to me, like chemically and physically with like concussions and everything. And but I'll tell you, like the whole time, like watching your transformation, it was like inspiring. And not only that, you turned that also into a job opportunity with Corey, who literally just busted through the door, like still working with you, you know, over a decade later.
So I think that was
your dedication to that and the professional thing, like that also I think is cool.
Yeah, like that was like you know, the triathlons and the weight loss started it all, and then once I got to old school though, like I could feel myself, because like, you know, I love my family, I love my extended family, but everyone, like, you know, very traditional the way they think. They have, other than my dad, I mean, he has his own business or whatever, but like everyone's like a firefighter or a nurse or a PT, like, so like something that you're going to be in it basically your whole life, more than likely, you know. And so my thing going at Capital was like, I'm going to be an accountant. It was like based on literally nothing. Like there was no other rhyme or reason. And I'm just like, and then I remember I was coming around on 70 by Livingston one day, coming back from old school. And then that was for whatever reason, it was that much clearer for me. I went straight to my advisor's office and told him I'm switching majors. And that was that. You know, it was one of the easiest decisions I've ever made. And so, and that was, again, up to that point in my life, very unlike me. And then that, you know, started to produce this like newfound confidence that I never knew I even had.
Well, I think what was happening was you were realizing who you were. Like it's not unlike you. It's like the most you possible.
Yeah.
And you finally like respected the fact that, not that, again, like your family, like all respect to, you know, those professions. Like my whole family are teachers. And like I technically am a teacher. Like I want to teach people what I know now, but I don't want to teach them like school things. I want to teach them like life lessons and how to, you know, design your life in a way that's going to help you be your best self. So like I understand that vibe, but yeah, it's great to be like, hey, you know, I know I can choose a different path. And then actually walking that though,
yeah,
I think that's why I maybe admire the most. And you know, we did have such similar values and everything, that even just, you know, whenever I would come home, you know, hanging out, having that, again, like community, even if it's a community of one, just seeing what you were up to was inspiring to push me to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, just having these people to look to. I mean, that's part of it growing up too. There wasn't really any example, which, I mean, you know, Corey talks about that all the time. Like, nobody was a personal trainer in the Ohio Valley that was really doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just a different, you know, maybe less extreme version than that. But then, like, the, you know, the snowball started, right? So, like, they became, like, I asked Corey for an internship. He instantly said yes, which is laughable that we called it an internship, because I'm in his office somewhere naming chest and arm workouts, you know,
Right.
and I'm doing, like, you know, little research projects on the products and stuff like that. But then that, you know, blossomed into a job opportunity, which took me to do something I would probably never would have done, which is move away from everybody. So at that point I was, you know, not quite engaged yet, but like I moved to Chicago, you know, had no account list, nothing. It was bare bones, nothing, figure it out. You know, so
That's the call to action in the hero's journey. You answered the call and went on this like strange journey that probably felt a little foreign and weird, but you learned a lot of shit.
you had to. Yeah. I mean, it was just cool though, because like I remember, you know, I drove out that day. I found the town I was going to live in. I found the apartment and signed the lease that day. And then I drove back to Ohio the same day. And then I was there in Chicagoland 2 weeks later and staying in my mom's friend's house, like way out in the suburbs. So like it happened really, really fast. And then it was just like, but then once I got settled in, I'm like, I can do this. I don't know why I was so like scared of this. And then like it forced me to start to fucking talk to people, you know, start to come out of my shell a little bit, because I'm not somebody I'm still not that kind of person anyway, unless I know you. Like, I'm not usually going to go out of my way and start talking to you. I'll be friendly or whatever, but that's usually the extent of it. So, like, going to Chicago, finding a gym, I mean, that was a whole nother thing, figuring out where I was going to go. I was just trying out a bunch of different gyms. Finally came across CrossFit Amplify, found a squad there, just a bunch of dads just throwing down. It was awesome. And that led to coaching, you know? So, and again, that was another, you know, notch on the belt for getting out of my comfort zone, because actually having to be the person that people are looking to trust and to teach them how to do something so they can get stronger and not be injured. You know, that was a whole nother thing that I was able to, you know, to bring to the table and then bring back with me when I moved back to Ohio. So.
Yeah, and so that like also goes back to the community piece, and you're just like finding more and more people. I think it's easy to settle down and kind of get maybe stuck in your environment, and like you don't have to leave a community to find a new one. In your case, like you did, but like especially with social media now, I mean, you can reach so many people and stay connected with so many people. I mean, I have friends all over the country from college and otherwise that you know, may not talk to all of them all the time, but I know if I reached out that we're immediately, you know, thick as thieves again. So
well, that's the thing too. Like I have that with you. I have that still like with Joe Musso, despite all the craziness that's happened in his life. Like,
speaking of Joe, like he was along the same lines as us, where, you know, a little overweight in high school. Like I remember one time I really liked Joe, and he had got cut from the baseball team one of the years, and you know, you and I were like, you know, you were like one of the best pitchers and I was the starting catcher, and so you and I collaborated a lot, you know, on the ball diamond, and you know, strike a lot of people out. It was a lot of fun. But Joe is someone that we wanted to have in the dugout, like a good buddy, and you know, he got cut from the team, and yeah, at some point, like he's a similar guy to you, where the switch just flipped, and now he literally became like an Army Ranger, and it like got jacked, and like you could just feel a shift in him. It's not anything he said; it was really just pure action.
It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
And I mean, I saw it from you, I saw it from him, you saw it from Ross Hartley, and now like all these years later, it's like forced me to be really consistent in pursuing that. And now I'm fortunate enough like to have lost 80 pounds since COVID.
Dude, that's crazy, man.
So like, yeah, so like your all of your guys' example, like I think it's a testament to like community, and one guy like, you know, Ross Hartley can be a domino effect to hit you, to hit Joe, to hit me. And I mean, you've obviously as a coach have touched, you know, hundreds of people at this point. And so yeah, that's a lot of fun. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that kind of phase? Because I was going to switch gears here in a minute. You probably know where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, other than, I mean, I'm literally just going through my life. That's funny. Just, you know, coming back to Ohio for Muscle Farm again for a marketing job, and then 3 months later we're all canned, and then I have to go to Nationwide.
Right.
You know, I'm at Nationwide for a year and a half doing life insurance.
So that part of the story, I think we can weave it in with, you know, so speaking of Chicago, one thing I remember is I was dating a woman, you were dating a woman, and we just said, we're going to do, you know, Valentine's Day in Chicago. It was freezing cold, like Windy City.
Oh my gosh, I almost forgot about that.
Lived up to its name. But, you know, I was fortunate. I never really saw you like dating in college, but then, you know, you did find someone that you kind of said like, hey, you know, speaking of, you know, family values, morals, faith, all that stuff, you know, you're like, hey, I found a girl. I think she might be the one. And at that point, I had a really close relationship with a woman I met at Harvard. And so we all got together, spent the weekend in Chicago, and it was a lot of fun. I remember specifically, and this is before we decided to like start a business or anything. It was kind of the beginning though, because I remember I told my ex that I wanted to do this and be an entrepreneur, and kind of told her your idea about like barbell lubricant and stuff, and she basically just like told me it was a terrible idea, and like, you know, and I just was really that I ultimately I think led to us breaking up. But it's funny, like kind of seeing your friends like date the wrong people, you know, even though those weren't the women for us, you know, we kind of went through that together. And yeah, our dream of like being entrepreneurs and starting a business just outweighed, you know, any opinions. Like I think because I was doing it with someone that I was so aligned with values and morals wise, I may not have been ready for it, but I do remember I just had this like confidence. I was like, yeah, we'll figure it out. And like at the very least, it's kind of like an on-the-job MBA, which you were kind of already getting from Corey and Muscle Farm and the other stuff. But yeah, I wanted to ask you, so like you did eventually marry that woman. She was with you in Chicago, and you know, I don't want to like focus on her specifically. I want to focus more on like your process of just realizing that, you know, your morals and like your strong drive to like start a family and all that stuff is a good thing, but within that too, maybe you compromise a little bit too much, you know. So you respect yourself so much, you made this transformation, you found a job that was, you know, maybe took a little bit more courage, you know, to get to what you actually wanted, and then now going through this in a romantic relationship. I'll let you talk about, I mean, so you were saying you moved back from Chicago, and this was around the time when that started heating up and you got married.
Well, so I was in Chicago the first 6 months by myself, and then she moved out there. We stayed in the same place mostly because of the cost, you know, just out there was more or higher cost of living. So we were out there, it was fine or whatever. Nothing like comes to mind that was like alarming, I guess, or red flag, at least not yet. But when I came back, did the Muscle Farm thing, then we all got let go, and then I was at Nationwide, and then, you know, leaving Nationwide and progressing full time with Corey. Once he was able to basically replace what I made at Nationwide, I was like, deuces out, you know. But so that's the reason why I backtrack, and then I'm going into Corey's stuff now is like I started to progress. Like I noticeably was progressing, not just like monetarily, but just like from a personal growth standpoint. And for her, like at the beginning, she was supportive. Like she was like, you know, a cheerleader. Like she, you know, I was always, you know, I always thought I was supporting her and giving her what she needed or whatever that may be, whether it's her career at the gym, with her family and stuff like that. But then there was a point where that tide started to shift, you know, after we were married and stuff like that. We had talked about like having kids and stuff like that, but I was by no means pushing it at all. Like I just had this random number in my head that I was gonna be 30 when I had my first kid, like if the stars aligned or whatever. And so, you know, I'm trying to like think of the lead domino for when things started to go downhill. But we moved into her dad's house on Ohio State's campus, and that's where I really started to notice things were different. Like we were entering that zone of like we were just living under the same roof. We weren't like really interacting a whole lot or having a lot of meaningful conversations. And so I'm like, this feels weird, you know, like, and I don't like it. And so it was like the classic case of like, you know, just sweeping it under the rug and kind of just ignoring it, you know, like, cause you never think you're going to get divorced, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like nobody gets into a relationship like that and says like, oh, I'm going to get divorced one day, maybe, who knows? Like you never think it's going to be you. And so that started to happen. There was other events that really set it off, you know, brought to my attention from my family actually. And so that actual like huge explosion, that's when I dipped out. Like I left the house, I took what I could, and I just stayed down at my grandpa's house. And so that was like, you know, and then we're, you know, kind of communicating between all this, and, you know, she's trying to rationalize it however, you know, she wants. But long story short, she has a lot of emotional baggage she's never dealt with. I think it even stems back to her mom and her childhood and stuff like that, which is really unfortunate because I don't like hate her or something like that. I'm not like rooting against her, but like it just became clear that like we're not meant, like I can't even, thank God I never had a kid, and I have to deal with that, you know, residual or that residue.
Kid's sake too.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like knowing and how it feels to have a kid and seeing them every day, and like if I had to deal with seeing her and then having to explain that to a kid, it would not be very enjoyable. So like,
I think no matter how you explain it to the kid, still feels the way they're gonna feel. I
yeah.
know that from my own like family and different things and friends. So we don't have to like dwell on that too much, but I do want to just, you know, through that time though, I feel like it's just good to have a friend that like knows, and like I knew that whole entire relationship, and like I knew you were doing the right thing and just kind of like letting you do it in your own time, but still being a homie, you know, and just kind of, you know, at that point too. So we had started an online business on Shopify. We were selling barbell lubricant. I think it was a good idea, like a solid like side business, but with everything else, like we had done that when we really didn't have our own thing secured. Like, you know,
that's the truth.
You weren't back with Corey yet. You were working at Nationwide and just kind of struggling and duking it out. And I think maybe, you know, I won't say it was rushed, but it was just a lot. We were going through a lot. So, and I myself too, it was a good learning experience. I kind of call it I feel like I have an MBA because I just did this on the spot thing, you know, like I was kind of like you had like the creative idea to like actually make the product, and my experience at working at Rogue Fitness, you know, really, I mean, I think the coolest thing that I wanted to mention is we put out our product, and then Rogue Fitness put out like a kit that was kind of a response, an answer.
It literally was, there's no way it was a coincidence.
So we weren't a financial like success, so to speak. But to be honest, like I probably less than half-assed it, but at the very least, you know, your idea and our collective execution of it caused Rogue Fitness to be like, hey, we're going to put 3-in-1 oil in this like brush in a little kit and sell it for $10. Every market ends up boiling down to like two competitors. So this market was not like robust or anything. It went straight to two. Rogue had us beat on, you know, basis of diversity and size and like resources. So eventually, to get our own kind of primary jobs up and running, you obviously now working with Max, and me now eventually getting into chiropractic school, like we had to kind of give that up, and like that's opportunity cost essentially.
Yeah.
But that to me was really cool, that your idea, your instinct ended up causing Rogue to respond, which it's really cool. Like the biggest form of was imitation is flattery.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I remember when that happened. I'm like, man, these dudes. I was like, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it was only a matter of time.
But they're the biggest of big dogs.
Yeah.
And I've always, I went to go work for Aleco in Austin because they literally told me they wanted to compete with Rogue, and I didn't think that they, I didn't think they understood what that meant, and they definitely didn't. And they ended up firing me because, I think my idea of competing with Rogue was, trying to be on a path where it could actually work out.
Yeah.
At least in some categories, like on barbells or, whatever. And they weren't necessarily willing to do everything that was necessary. So it was good. They fired me. It was good for me to move on, because then again, I ended up working for Thorne, working directly with chiropractors and realizing that was my path. So, but yeah, that your intuition, like developing, your instincts, you were just sharpening them over time. So I know you got to get going pretty soon. I think what we need to do maybe in a couple months is like a part 2 to talk about. So we kind of talked about the bumps and bruises, but also like the initial kind of the genesis of your evolution, and then some of the bumps and bruises along the way. But just to tease the next episode, maybe you can just say what's happened since then. So we ended up closing Bar Shield. You got with Max Effort and are now you're still a senior editor.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the title? But a little bit of everything.
Corey does. He calls me something different every time. Senior editor, Corey G Fitness, the app, the website.
To be honest, it's like guy that he trusts. Really, I think is the title.
He jokes like you can give him his phone,
right,
that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, but that's like years of work that you put in, and just showing up consistently, I think, is how you build trust. And so you definitely, I've seen that.
Yeah, I think like with the the Bar Shield thing too, just to kind of circle back a little bit, is like, that was a whole nother like level of like developing as a person too, because like that forced us into a different lane. We our first event was Wadapalooza in Miami, Florida. Our fucking box got lost with UPS. Where's our box?
We learned so much. We could probably do a whole episode just on Bar Shield, which we probably should.
And like my ex ended up bringing stuff down in the suitcase, like just like adapting and stuff, and then like getting the 10x10 from Katie Canopy in Colorado, which shout out Linda, which is ironic, that's her name.
Yeah.
She knocked it out of the park with the canopy. So we had our demonstration on the table. We met Danny Lear, we met Aaron from Fit Aid. We made these connections, and I don't know. It was just a really cool experience. And like, I think it was almost like ahead of our time, almost in a way,
Yeah, like I feel
because
like I feel like I rushed into it, like I wasn't ready, but you kind of have to do it before you're ready.
I feel like you just have to have one of those experiences, because like there's many different ways we could have gone about it, but like if we know what we know now, then it's like one of those things. It could be a lot different.
So all those lessons you learned, becoming a coach and all that, I think what I would tease for maybe part 2 is, so now, not necessarily rock bottom, but getting divorced, growing up Catholic, I'm sure that's like not the goal, So it's
right.
Kind of like worst case scenario in a way. And like Tim Ferriss is like our, at one point kind of like role model, I think, professionally. And he always talks about fear setting, and like I think I've had to hit rock bottom for me to really get to this place where I'm doing a podcast and working towards my life's work. And I think that place, when you came back, working at Nationwide, marriage is falling apart, Bar Shield, you kind of realize like, hey, we have the juice, but this isn't the idea that's gonna pop off. You know, like, and those two things are true. Like, this is really cool, but also it's not my life's work.
It's just a part of the process. That's all.
It's a part of the process, but I think the next episode is kind of the rebound, and like, you gave up everything. You let all that go, and I think you let it go quickly enough so that the right things could come to you. Like, you kind of centered yourself. You didn't, maybe a little angry, but like, you didn't stay angry. Like, you processed it, worked through it.
Yeah, that's actually a good stopping point because there was like very concrete and real things that I did to help me get through in a timely manner versus like, you have a fork in the road. You pick which way you want to go. It was it was a conscious choice. that was it. It was so obvious to me, like, on how someone could either come out of this or they don't, and then they never deal with it and they become addicted to, take your pick, So that was a huge turning point, and it was just chopping off the anchor.
But bringing it back to Dune 2, I think everything we talked about today is kind of like Dune 1 for you, and the next episode is going to be when you finally accepted, like, you kind of finally accepted your destiny, and that, like you said, good place to stop. But I can tell you, like, the story, we don't know how the story ends completely, but I can tell you the story's going well right now.
Yeah, it's
everything that you learned along the way. I see you, like, using those lessons and just continuing to evolve. So, a little teaser for maybe a couple months from now.
Maybe we'll have to come down to Dallas and see you.
We could do a Texas edition, or I know I may be lifting at national championships in Pittsburgh. So if I come back to Columbus,
When's
we'll
that?
connect. That's going to be end of June.
Oh, okay.
Just a couple days after my dad's 77th birthday.
Oh my gosh!
So
shout out Nicholas.
I'd love to be back and see him for his birthday and do all that. But I'm sure we'll get to it in good time.
For sure.
Well, yeah. So I know you got to get out of here, but I wanted to just appreciate you for sharing again, for being you, and just recognizing me. Like, I have a lot of friends that, like I said, have, like, fallen by the wayside, and maybe for one reason or another between the two of us, haven't stuck around. I can be pretty difficult, especially when I'm going through it. I am, like, as cool as I am at times, I'm, like, equally, my dark side is equally dark. So, no, I appreciate you for just, like, for being yourself and being that inspiration to me, because I think I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
So with that, I've been trying to figure out how to close the podcast. I want to know, do you have any ideas? The one I did last night, I said, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose, and I didn't feel right. So
It did feel right?
Yeah.
Try it on.
Even though I do like that, it's not mine.
You should just write down one of the quotes you come across, since you're a big quote slut.
Yeah.
I mean, we were both are.
Because
the one when you mentioned Tim Ferriss, one flashed in front of my eyes for him, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's something to do with, like, the quality of your life can be judged by the number of uncomfortable situations or conversations you put yourself in. That's, I don't know. That was what I thought of. So.
Right. For sure. I think that's a good way to close. So, again, thanks for being on. And episode 7 coming next Tuesday. Thanks, y'all. See ya.
Boom.